It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A, answering your questions in the wrestling community. It's time for another episode of AskSCW here on YouTube.com. So many great questions on the way for you this week, including on WWE, NXT, AEW, and much more. If you want to be involved on the next episode, then drop a question in the comments below with the hashtag AskSCW, or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or should grab up on your screen right about now. But without further ado, let's get the big topic this weekend on a big superstar returning to WWE in our first question. And that superstar is none other than John Cena. Austin Whitley asking, if the rumours of John Cena, or Uncle Cena as he likes to call him, returning are true, then who should be the first feud and why should it be Roman Reigns? You hit the nail on the head there. What a great feud that would be to kick back in. Of course, yes, rumours are circulating over the weekend, of course, with the return of fans coming from July 16th, that WWE want to have a big superstar return to just make that show feel that extra bit special, and John Cena is that rumoured one. And if he wants to come in, well, come on, Roman Reigns, that would be the money feud to start off with, wouldn't it? Maybe he could, of course, it is the SmackDown before Money in the Bank, so perhaps he could say he's going to challenge the winner at Money in the Bank, the winner of that Universal Championship match, or even enter the Money in the Bank himself, and that way he can probably try and go for that 17th world title, because what else is there to do for John Cena if he doesn't go for that? And if you look back, it's going back nearly 4 years ago now, that program we had before, No Mercy, I believe 2017, was Roman Reigns and John Cena. And Cena more or less, buried Roman Reigns on the mic back then. Imagine it now, with Roman Reigns now in that position, with Paul Heyman, the advocate, in the corner as well, against the babyface John Cena, looking to get that 17th world title. That would feel like money. That would actually feel like a SummerSlam main event. That certainly would tick a lot of the boxes for a lot of people. And let's be honest, John Cena is a name that would bring people back in, and will get, people that have not really been watching so much often would come back and give it a chance to see what John Cena is doing. And if John Cena just goes, to be another guy on the roster, faces someone from the mid-card, or faces someone, yes, he can do a job and put somebody over, but Cena would feel important after being away for so long, and to be put back in this position. What else is there for John Cena to do at this point? Big match John, as John Layfield used to say on commentary, JBL, back in the day. So yeah, I personally think that would be the only way to bring John Cena back. I would love to see Cena versus Reigns, particularly this Roman Reigns right now, and add another name to that list. We've seen this past week on SmackDown, Roman Reigns go through all the names of people that, he's gone through since coming back to WWE, and it's another reason to acknowledge him. And, obviously with the stuff going on with Jimmy and Jey Uso, maybe it's sorted by that point, maybe it's not, maybe Cena stuff plays into everything that's going on. It could certainly be fun with John Cena being around in that rivalry. So for me, I actually think you're bang on the money. There's nowhere else for it to go. It would have to be Cena versus Reigns for me. If he was to stay, of course. If it was a one-off appearance, then maybe it's a promo or something that helps to put someone over on the night. Then I would kind of understand it. But if he's sticking around, that 17th world title, that is a storyline that could, it would make logic, it would make sense, and it's something that I personally would really like to see. And I wonder if you'd like to see it in the comments section below. Wrestling through life of our next question now. What matches do you feel should be inside Hell in a Cell this year? Very good question, this one, and that's the money question right now, looking at WWE programming, and I'm sure over the next course of this week we'll probably have a good idea of what will be inside the cell. Looking on a Monday Night Raw, I can't see past Bobby Lashley against Drew McIntyre. That still needs some resolution, but I do wonder if there could be a slight different play of an idea for a match with the Raw side for the WWE Championship. But I'm going to save that answer if you don't mind, because I've got a video dropping tomorrow. That's a great little plug for that, isn't it? A video tomorrow on what could be an alternative idea for the WWE Championship. But for the Universal Championship, Roman has one of two paths, in my opinion. I think the lesser likely option would be Cesaro and Seth Rollins in a triple threat match environment in the Hell in a Cell. Or we could get a repeat of last year with Reigns versus an Uso, and that would be Jimmy Uso this time instead of Jay. As I did in a video earlier this week, I'd like to see Jay as the special guest referee. Make it an I Quit stipulation as well, just like they did before, and then that way what they can do is if Jimmy Uso wins, he's the head of the table because of course he wins the championship. Jey Uso is released, so the Usos can be a team again. But if Jimmy Uso loses, he has to also fall in line and join the bloodline like Jey did last year, with Jey being the one as the referee making that decision. Where does his loyalties lie? I think that would be a fun stipulation if that match was to go down. Unsure on the territory what would happen with the women's division. They usually do have one women's Hell in a Cell match. I can't see it with Bianca Belair and Bayley myself, but perhaps more likely Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. That could be a direction that could go there. Asuka still seems to be in the championship picture. Maybe that's the one would be more likely if one women's match was to go inside Hell in a Cell. But what matches do you feel? Let me know now in the comments below. Now I have to give credit to two people for my next set of questions now. Dylan Ketchum and Noob & Co. both asking my thoughts on the feud between Big E and Aleister Black, and also both wanted to know my thoughts on fans returning. What is my reaction to that? So yeah, two fantastic questions then. Let's start then with Aleister Black, of course, returning on SmackDown this week. Of course, we've seen him in vignettes for the last number of weeks now, and of course, I've really enjoyed the presentation, the cinematography of how that's been done, particularly this week where it's fading between the cartoon to himself. I just really like the way it was done, and of course, those vignettes, they were more presentation based and perhaps had substance in the words. But one thing we knew this week, that Aleister Black, he was coming back. It was a target had been set, and Big E was that target in the main event area. And what I really like about this feud is the fact that Big E, it now takes him out of the Intercontinental Championship picture. You can finally move on from from Apollo, and we've got a new fresh feud going forward. And Big E for me now will go on to bigger and better things. So for Aleister Black coming into this position, we're not going to see him go through jobbers for 4 to 6 weeks before he gets into a program. Aleister Black is being put into a major program on SmackDown. So for me, I'm heavily invested in it. The only thing that I'm uncertain of at this point is the motive behind it. Perhaps maybe Big E being that fun-loving, guy that's power of positivity, and then you've got this contrast, the dark side of Aleister Black, the one that says, that people are kind of built as failures and stuff like this, and maybe this is the false promise we're getting with someone like a Big E. Maybe that's what the direction of this is going to lead to. The only other thing I would say that could be a negative at this point, I don't want to see Aleister Black come in and immediately lose to Big E, because I think you need to start building some, future baby faces to be going for the likes of Roman Reigns further down the line. But at the same time, it's a unique dynamic. Maybe they'll do a best of 3 series, who knows. But the last thing I'm going to say quickly on Aleister Black before I move on to the next question, I love the use of the one contact lens in the eye there. Continuity to the storyline, ladies and gentlemen. Remember Aleister Black had his eye done in by Murphy last year on Raw, and he was having an eye patch almost for until it was taken off TV last October. They're still continuing that within the storyline. It's actually continuity for the first time in a long time. WWE are doing something like that. They're not just sort of forgotten, because they could have hit the reset button, and I think many of us would have forgiven it. So I like the fact that they have done that, and it just makes me have a lot more faith in the SmackDown creative team. So yeah, I'm all in favour of this. I like where it's going, and I'm intrigued to see where it's going to lead to. As for the fans coming back, July 16th, it's going to be the first show. SmackDown, that will be the go-home show before Money in the Bank on that Sunday, and then for Raw onwards. And I think then they've got, what's it, like a 25-city or date tour they're going to do that they've set for dates after that, which I think will include SummerSlam as well. I'm really excited for it. I'm really happy that fans are going to be back in attendance. You felt it at WrestleMania. It just something was special in the air that night. It was an organic feeling watching a wrestling show, and you know that the fans are going to come back into the arenas for the first time in such a long time. It's going to feel just as special for them. It's the first time in 16 months that we'll have that sort of reaction on a week-to-week, show-to-show basis. You know that even, let's be fair, I hope that really doesn't give a poor product, but even if it is a poor product, I think fans will not take it for granted. I think for so long, fans got used to just having, Raw's in my town or SmackDown's in my town, and you see all these sort of quiet cities. Sometimes they go to maybe like Corpus Christi where it's really quiet. I don't think you're going to get that anywhere now. I think everyone's going to be giving it large. They're going to be really energetic, really passionate, really into it. I think what even adds to that as well is that finally we can gauge on who is and who isn't over, what storylines are and not working, and that's not really just for our purpose, it's more for WWE's purpose, because maybe at that point they can see this character is not quite connecting, this isn't going quite in the direction we want it to, fans are actually not willing to tolerate this sort of level of storytelling, and they'll get things back on track, because a lot of people right now, they say Raw, it's not so good. SmackDown, a lot more happy with it. And if that is the case with Raw, maybe then we'll get a bit of a reshuffle of the deck, reshuffle of the pack, a few storylines will change, maybe a few characters may turn face or heel or something, perhaps a bit more shock element to TV. I'm excited to see what's going to be brought to the table here, and I hope for a very positive going forward from it. Is it too soon? Well, I know a lot of people, the vaccinations are going thick and fast and providing testing and stuff, and it's all done where it's above board and everyone's going to be okay that goes to these shows. I'm all for it. I think it worked okay from WrestleMania, from what I understand. I haven't seen any negative reports from that since, so yeah, let's see how it goes, and fingers crossed, this is the start of the return of normality, and especially for us wrestling fans to see that on a consistent basis in WWE. One more question then from Noob and Co this week. Do you think Asuka knew that Charlotte is going after the Raw Women's title? Is Asuka winning the Women's Money in the Bank to cash in front of live fans? It's an interesting storyline twist that you present there. I'm not so sure. I think Asuka definitely would still like to be Raw Women's Champion now. I don't think we've got that far into WWE's detailed storytelling where they're probably even thinking that far ahead to Money in the Bank at this present stage. So seeing that actually Asuka defeated Charlotte on Raw this past week, I don't see why Asuka isn't going for the championship immediately. She should be arguably at this point the #1 contender. Perhaps they'll do a rematch of Ripley versus Asuka, or perhaps they may do that on Raw, and then it will lead to Ripley versus Charlotte on pay-per-view. That could then free up your idea for Asuka to go for Money in the Bank this year. Asuka, she did win it last year, which led her to win the championship, so it would make sense for her to be back in the match this year to try and do that once again. But personally for me, I wouldn't be a fan of Asuka winning it. I want to see someone different in the championship position. I want to see new stars being built. We're sort of seeing it with Bianca Belair now on SmackDown being the SmackDown Women's Champion for the first time, Rhea Ripley being the first time on Raw. We've got these sort of mainstay superstars, the ones that are in and around the championship picture all the time, but we've seen a lot of those matches, so I want to see a fresh face win Money in the Bank for the women this year. Personally, if it was my choice, I would love to see someone like Shayna Baszler win it, because then you get the rocket put on her back and she should go towards the top end of the women's division, because at the moment she's sort of stuck in that sort of tag team hell with Nia Jax going on at the minute. And of course, these rematch after rematch, I want to see something fresh and something different. I want the Queen of Spades back. I want Shayna Baszler she was presented in NXT, dominating each and every week on the main roster. And I think a program like Asuka versus Shayna Baszler, for example, would be epic to see. If by somehow between now and actually Money in the Bank, if that was to go through, that Asuka could win the Women's Championship back. Or, I mean, we say Baszler versus Ripley, Baszler versus Flair. Sign me up for any of those. I'd like to see all of those feuds in Raw right now. Next question coming from DWE, the home of wrestling and football. I'm liking the change of the username. Now the fans are back. Should WWE go back to the pre-pandemic stages they had for their shows, as I thought they were very good? Or do you think we should see new ones? I really like the staging as well, and I do feel kind of sorry for the old stages that we had, because they weren't around for very long, of course, before the pandemic hit. But news reports have struck in the last week that WWE are going to hit the reset button. We are going to get fresh new stages, a new WWE, a new look, a new set. That's kind of what WWE likes to do when it comes to these sort of things. So I'm not surprised they are going to freshen things up. I am quite excited to see what they're going to bring back. Kind of, you said they're home of wrestling and football. Let's link a little bit of the football into what I'd like to see into the WWE stages. A lot of the time you see new football kits come out from teams each and every season. Sometimes has that retro feel of a classic kit they did previously. Now, if you do that with Raw and SmackDown, I'd like to go back to like the Ruthless Aggression. You can have like the Raw Titantron, where it's kind of at that sort of angle, that sort of setting, if you remember those shows, and kind of have some sort of set that's like that, but also with a fresh new twist to it, so it kind of feels kind of current, fresh and up to date as well. For SmackDown, of course, I want to see the SmackDown Fist come back, but I don't expect either of those ideas to come back, even though retro format. Perhaps I'm on my own with this, but I think permanently some form of section of the WWE staging should actually permanently have some sort of Thunderdome setting, just so some fans from home can get on the screens. I think it's something that's an up-to-date thing, and I think it's so you don't forget what we went through with the Thunderdome sort of era. I think that way you can connect it. Maybe have a couple of screens on each side if you want, with like a small section of fans, not the big screens that we're seeing, but maybe just like those sort of Zoom ones where you kind of got, I don't know, maybe like 100 fans if you want on each set there in very small screens, just so you remember what we've got through to where we back are now, just so we can really just appreciate it just that bit more. That's what I'd like to see. But what would you like to see if there are new sets? Let me know now in the comments below. Lorenzo Carrillo with our next questions now. Do you think that maybe Seth will turn face after his feud with Cesaro? Question 2. Who from outside WWE will be a high-key main eventer, male and female, in WWE in the next 5 years? Interesting one, that one. And 3. Which WWE superstars will get cheered and booed the most when fans return? Well, we've been talking about fans, so let's kick off on that to finish that chapter off. On the booed side, I hope that, like WrestleMania, Roman Reigns is booed by fans. I think that's something key that needs to happen because that character is being booked so well and so right. It deserves the gratification of being booed by fans. So I really hope that that is going to be a key element that when we come back, that happens. Looking at things as well, I don't want to see this, but I think it could happen. I think we could start getting the 50-50 side with Drew McIntyre. I think people have been very pleased to see what's happened over the last 12 months, but I do think that Drew, some people are starting to get a bit stale of him, so I think a few boos could creep in. Maybe some notable names that we could look out for that could get big cheers. I think that the fans will get behind Cesaro. I think people are very much into what's going on with the Usos, so judging on it with that sort of, cheer and boo dynamic, I think people will go into that accordingly. Maybe, looking at a couple of surprise ones, maybe that we wouldn't expect to see. I think when Keith Lee comes back, if he comes back with fans, I think he'll get a humongous ovation, and I think that it'll get to a point where hopefully, if we can get really behind the people we really like, WWE can't ignore them, and someone like Keith Lee will really be pushed up that pecking order. That's certainly what I want to see when we go back to seeing fans back in WWE events once again for Raw and SmackDown. Someone that could get cheered, as we move on to that next question then, Seth Rollins, if he wants to turn babyface after his feud with Cesaro. I think it's a possibility. If you are, we talked earlier in this video, the idea of John Cena coming back, that would probably delay the idea of a Seth Rollins Roman Reigns match at SummerSlam. I still think that would be a big money match if you was to do it at SummerSlam. If there are links with the Usos and it can link everything together, this week Rollins and Reigns were in the same segment together, so it would be kind of interesting how it will work out. Maybe Rollins will start teaming up with Reigns again. Maybe it's like 2/3 of the Shield, like old days. That two-man power trip. Who knows? That could lead to the feud for them further down the line. It's hard to know what the storyline is going to play out at this moment in common sense, but I would like to see Seth Rollins turn babyface at some point. I've enjoyed his heel run. I think he needed it after that feud with The Fiend a couple of years ago, but what I would say now is that there is a big hole for a top babyface on SmackDown right now, especially now Daniel Bryan is not around in the mix. So I would like to see Seth Rollins fill that void. I think when Edge returns, I think he's still going to be like that kind of tweener, perhaps going towards heel. So I think it ticks a lot of the boxes because I still want to see Seth Rollins versus Edge further down the line. So a face Rollins against the heel Edge, I'd be totally down for that as well. So yeah, for me, I hope it happens, but will it happen? I'm uncertain at this stage anyway. And last but not least, then, who from outside of WWE will be big in WWE in the next 5 years? This is a big question. It's all depending on, where WWE looks to try and sign their talent from. I think that there is a couple of people from Impact that could be a big deal in whichever company they go to, should they leave Impact and go to WWE. I think Dashing Chris Bay has got potential to tick a lot of the boxes to be a top player. Same with Ace Austin. He really reminds me of AJ Styles when you look back to those TNA days right now. Josh Alexander as well, I think if he was to come to WWE, I think he could be presented like a Kurt Angle style in-ring machine competitor, just depending on the mic skills if he would become a top guy. But outside of it, I suppose if you were to pick two people from AEW, if MJF ever was to go to WWE, without question, I think that would be probably a lot of people's answers. And as well, Dr. Britt Baker, if she was to ever go to WWE, I think she's presenting herself so well on the mic that I would see her being a big-time player in WWE, especially with the ties of Adam Cole as well. So there will be my two answers for you, but it's a very, very difficult question to answer that one. So again, perhaps I need some suggestions in the comments below. Let's get involved. I look forward to interacting. Next question coming from Eleanor. Of course, Eleanor Wrestling on YouTube right now. Make sure to go and check it out. She says, would you like to see Drew McIntyre leave the WWE title picture for a bit? Yes, I most certainly would. And as I spoke about in an earlier question, I just don't want it to get stale for Drew McIntyre. I still think he's been presented as a top babyface, and they've done a great job in presenting as such babyface. I think he has the tools to be a babyface top of the card for years to come. But if he's always involved in the WWE Championship, fans will get bored and will get stale of it. I think Drew needs to go to a position now for at least 3 to 6 months where he's sort of if you want doing a redemption story to try and get back into the championship picture, but more just being, you know, the upper mid-card talents, just has some fresh matches that don't involve the championship. Jinder Mahal, I think, is one direction they will go down. I don't think that should be a championship feud. That would be perfect. So, you know, for right now, build Jinder up and have that sort of 3-B playoff if you want. Then perhaps Drew McIntyre can face people like The Fiend or Braun Strowman. Those sort of matches could play well into the fall. And then maybe, if I get my wish, Drew McIntyre goes to SmackDown in the next draft, then we can build up for Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns for next year's WrestleMania. And I think by that point, if Drew hasn't been in the championship picture from now until WrestleMania next year, I think people will be fully invested in it. Maybe if Drew wins the Rumble again, maybe that could be an idea to get him into that match at WrestleMania. And those two, I mean, that would be the main event. That would scream main event. The best booked babyface of the last couple of years against the best booked heel. Winner takes all with that Universal Championship. I think it screams money. I think that would be a good idea to go down. But yeah, I think it's a great idea right now for Drew just to take a bit of a break from the WWE Championship picture. He's been in and around it now what feels like a long time. And of course, it has been, what, about a year and 3 months or something like that. But obviously, with the way the world has been right now, it feels like it's been a lot longer. So I think for Drew and I think for fans, I think we just need to freshen things up a touch, get a new face in there, and then we'll bring Drew back when he's ready in a few months' time. Wrestling Network with the next question now. Who do you think is going to win this year's Money in the Bank? Great question, this one, and as I said earlier in the video, I want to see new stars win the Money in the Bank briefcases. So I think that's a great dynamic of, you know, making new stars rather than actually having the same old tried and tested faces. If I was to look amongst the rosters on the men's side, I think Cesaro probably is a favourite, looking at it, Big E as well. And on the Raw side, I think Damian Priest would be a shout also. But I've always been a fan of a heel winning it. If I had my choice, Kevin Owens would be the one, because I think, even though he's a babyface right now, I think that would be a quite interesting dynamic if he was to turn heel to win the championship. Or, you know, he could do that on Raw, or perhaps he'd get a big pop if he was to win it on SmackDown. Sami Zayn would be an interesting one as well with the conspiracies. I think storytelling would be a lot of fun to watch, but it's hard to pick who is going to win. If I had to put my money on it right now, I probably would say Cesaro, just because of the fact I think he's having an unbelievable year. But at the moment, I'm unsure on it. Looking on the women's side, I said earlier in the video, I'd want Shayna Baszler to win it. I talked about the idea of Asuka was to win it. I think it's going to be someone more established that will win it this year, and I personally wouldn't be surprised if it was Charlotte Flair. But again, as I said, I would like to see a fresh face win the Money in the Bank this year. I think it makes a lot more sense, although the heel usually makes things a lot more fun as well, because it is a heel move to usually cash in that briefcase, especially when a champion is vulnerable. AK the Elite with the next question now. Who do you think is going to be the Joker at Double or Nothing? A really good question. Of course, that's going to be involved with the Casino Battle Royale. And just to say, I'm giving my full predictions for AEW Double or Nothing coming on the channel this week, so keep an eye out for that. For the Joker, it's hard to say really at this particular point, but I'm sure there's going to be about at least 1,000 YouTubers going to say Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson. I don't think that's happening, so I just want to say that nice and early. For me, I think it makes sense for someone that can try and go for Kenny Omega. I think that's the point. If it's going to be an outsider, last year it was Matt Sydal, which I feel was a bit flat. This year, I mean, we've got a lot going on with the Forbidden Door. It would make a lot of sense of someone from Impact Wrestling to try and get revenge of losing their championship to come in this position. Someone like Rich Swann would make a lot of sense. That's something I really want to see more than I think we'll see it. Of course, as well, there's New Japan. If someone from there was to come in, that would be quite cool to see. I mean, Kenta was involved earlier in the year. But I actually going to stick my neck out and say that we're building for Triple Mania later this year. So I'm going to actually stick my neck out and say that Andrade will be the Joker, will be the wild card, because I think a lot of people will pop big time for that, especially it's going to be a full house there for Double or Nothing this year, so they're going to want to make sure that we're going to be very happy with who that Joker is going to be. So my final answer for you on a prediction right now, an early prediction for this one, unless it somehow changes by the predictions video, right now it's Andrade. Next question comes from Wrestling by Waldridge on YouTube as well. Go and check him out. With travel restrictions hopefully easing off, which big New Japan wrestling star would you like to see have a program in AEW? And would you like to see anyone in particular from AEW or Impact rosters enter this year's G1 tournament? Really good question, this one. Really like this. Of course, yeah, things look to be easing off then. Let's see. Will the Forbidden Door be opened a bit more? Certainly it'll be easier to get superstars from show to show, as you say. Perhaps maybe we'll benefit more. We'll get really excited once again of what they're going to do with the Forbidden Door. To give an answer for your question, for me, I think Jay White would be a particular one that I'd like to see because his mic work is incredible, great on telling and delivering a story, and of course he has got history with a number of people from AEW as well, from the times where he's competed in Ring of Honor and as well in New Japan also. So for me, I think Jay White would be a great one. I would love to see Will Ospreay as well, but unfortunately I know he's picked up a neck injury, even had to vacate the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, which I'm really sad to see. I hope he makes a very speedy recovery. If you're going to go for a top New Japan star though, actually Japanese from Japan, Okada's the one, isn't he? To have Okada versus Omega in All Elite Wrestling would I think would be a big time play if they were to go down that avenue. But to give a one answer for you, purely because of the promos and just the way he's presented as a character, I think Jay White definitely would be something that would be very interesting to see how that would play on AEW's weekly television. As for AEW stars or Impact stars going over for the G1, I know we've had for the, I think it was the Super Juniors, I know Dashing Chris Bay and TJP went over that last December. From Impact, I'd love to see Sami Callihan. I think his gimmick as a Death Machine would work really well in that Japanese market, so I think Callihan would probably be my choice. I think W. Morrissey as well, being so tall, I think he's an attraction. I think that would work really well. Looking at the AEW roster, it's a bit more difficult because quite a number of them have been in New Japan already, obviously a lot of the main names that we've seen, so I'd want to see one of the up-and-comers be in that sort of position instead. So thinking about it, I mean, perhaps someone like Miro was in WWE as an outsider, that could be quite fun to see, but maybe as an up-and-comer, maybe someone like Jungle Boy. How would Orange Cassidy feel watching him in the Tokyo Dome? I'm not so sure if Japanese fans would really, but maybe him versus Yano, who knows, that would be quite fun to watch. So yeah, there's certainly some talent there that would be fun and interesting to watch, but for me, definitely, I think maybe Callihan would be an interesting one, and yeah, I think Miro probably be my choice from AEW. Renier Porter, the next question now. In their prime, Seth Rollins versus Ric Flair in an Iron Man match, who wins? Awesome question, and both in their prime are just, well, incredible athletes, but I'm going to have to go with Ric Flair. Ric Flair used to do 60-minute matches all the time in the 80s, and sometimes those matches would even probably go to draws back in NWA, so Flair at that point was the man. There was no way of beating him, and Flair, was one of the greatest of all time. Seth Rollins isn't quite on that level yet for me, so for me, I'd have to go with Ric Flair. Mike, Tanhab's Mike, with our next two questions now. What are your thoughts on the build that NXT did for Kross versus Balor 2? He thought it was very well done and had a very big time feel, making it feel like a huge pay-per-view match. And the second question coming in is that, did I get a chance to see the new episode of Dark Side of the Ring? Quick answer to that one, yes I did. What are my thoughts about it? Of course, Collision in Korea. Mike thought it was one of the best ones they have done. Most fans have heard bits of it over the years, but it's crazy how bad it was. Do I believe Too Cold Scorpio saying he could have taken Hawk? I don't think, as we heard the stories about how legit tough Hawk was. Well, let's talk about Dark Side of the Ring to kick things off then of that, shall we? Yeah, Collision in Korea. I personally didn't know much about information of it. I've never seen the show, never knew much about it. So yeah, I was shocked to see how things played out. And of course, some of the stories that were said there from Scott Norton in particular were, quite eye-opening if you want. As for Too Cold Scorpio and Hawk, yeah, I mean, for me, I've heard some legit stories of a bad dude Hawk was, and of course they had Legion of the Doom, the Road Warriors have their own Dark Side of the Ring episode just to go and see how legit and bad those dudes were. I'm sure Too Cold was legit in his own right, but I don't know what either of them were thinking of it playing out there while they were there in Korea, personally. I think that little feud could have took place at a different time period. They didn't need to make things more heated and worse than what they did, but perhaps they felt stressed, and I don't know, maybe they felt it was the best way was to take out on each other. I don't quite really know with that, but definitely looking as a documentary, I can say it's definitely one of the best ones they've done. I thought it was fascinating to see how it all played out and to learn about the story of it, and of course looking at the whole history of what created the show together and stuff like that, and getting Eric Bischoff's thoughts on it as well. It's always good to see Eric Bischoff and get his thoughts and feelings on everything. So yeah, I do think this is a strong episode. I think people should go and check it out. As for Finn Balor and Karrion Kross, yeah, they presented it as a big time field one, a real big matchup. This feels like it should be leading and headlining a takeover, not a weekly TV of NXT in my personal opinion, especially when you had some big names coming on there. Paul Heyman really hyped up the match. I mean, if you thought it was well put together before, the second Paul Heyman got on there, you had Pat McAfee, of course, who's now on SmackDown, but Paul Heyman saying like that even the tribal chief Roman Reigns is, you know, saying to himself he's interested in the winner of this match. Roman Reigns is acknowledging, the one that's supposed to be acknowledged is acknowledging this match as a future potential contender, someone he could be facing further down the line. And of course, I mean, when you look at that, that's amazing. And Paul Heyman, he usually gives spoilers. He didn't even want to give a prediction. He claimed it to be too close to call. So what more do you need to build a match than that right now? The most legit thing happening in WWE completely on that show, telling you that this is something you cannot miss. So for that reason, yeah, it's been presented the best way it can be presented. I can't wait to see it. I was excited to see it before they did this video package last week, but the fact they did such a great job on it, I'm even more hyped for it. So yeah, bring it on. I can't wait to see it. And of course, to make my prediction, I might as well do it now, because I probably won't do a video of it before. I think Kross does retain the NXT Championship. Next question comes from Cherry Jerry, asking if I was to select 6 professional wrestlers from any promotion to become Power Rangers and combat the forces of evil, who would they be and why? Unfortunately, I have been so many years since I've watched the Power Rangers, I can't really go into what series and give, you know, specific colours for those Rangers, but I kind of feel that a lot of babyfaces, your top babyfaces, would fit the roles very well. So I think those would be the ones that would be the key characters if you were to do so. So you're looking at likes of like a John Cena, you know, a Roman Reigns when he was top babyface of the company would probably fit that mold very well. Drew McIntyre would be another one. If you were to look outside of the promotion as well to other top babyfaces in other companies, you look at AEW. Would someone like a John Moxley fit? That I would question, but maybe someone like Okada maybe would kind of fit. I'm not sure. He's used to being a team player as well, being a part of Chaos. Maybe that's something that should be taken into consideration when you look at things. And with the women's rosters, I mean, what would be good fits? Maybe people like Hikaru Shida would be quite a good fit for the Power Rangers. And maybe to give one last name, I mean, perhaps Bianca Belair, or even someone like a Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch, the man, if you want, you know, when she was the number one in WWE at that point, she was arguably the hottest thing in the company, and I think that you know, being the top babyface facing the forces of evil, I think she would be someone that would fit that roster. To give a final 6, let's break those names down. Give it a final 6. Becky Lynch, Hikaru Shida would be 2 of my female ones. Then I would go with Cena, McIntyre, Reigns, and let's give one more name. Let's think about it. Do you know what? Johnny Gargano does a good job as Iron Man, and I think he's been a top babyface before, the face of NXT, so he'll be my final one to fill up the Power Rangers role. Well, it's been many years since I've seen the Power Rangers. I actually haven't seen The Walking Dead, which is going to be featured in our next one. So apologies if these last couple of questions are not being answered as well as they can. But Jamie, the controversial one I'm asking, and it's inspired by Cherry Jerry's question. So shout out to Cherry Jerry for this. He said if I could compare 6 wrestlers in WWE with characters from The Walking Dead, who would be each wrestler? It seems appropriate with the addition of zombies in wrestling. So yeah, I mean, I've never seen The Walking Dead, so literally probably not doing this question any justice at all. But if there are people that are watching The Walking Dead, then perhaps you should give me suggestions in the comments below. The best I can say is I think you've got to look for those darker sort of characters. Those are probably the natural fits that would probably fit very well in that sort of current climate. Your Undertakers, your Kanes, your Fiend, Bray Wyatts, those sort of characters work really well. Let's look from outside of WWE. I mean, Dan Housen maybe could be quite fun to see in that with the current sort of gimmick he's got going on in Ring of Honor, so he'll be another choice of mine. And yeah, I mean, we've had zombies in WWE, so I guess The Miz now would probably fit that, right, wouldn't he, after what we've just had? And yeah, I mean, perhaps ECW zombie, there you go, that'll be my 6, but I'm really sorry, because I wish I could give you a better answer on that one, but maybe it's on my watch list, it's something I want to check out, but I've just not got round to it, but maybe I need to do that. Maybe I can revisit this question for you, maybe in a number of months or so. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching as always. AskSCW. Hope you've enjoyed it as always. Coming up next week will be AEW's Double or Nothing predictions. As well as that, the Q&A live. SCW Live will be returning on Wednesday. Rated R for Wrestling will be joining me. And of course, just to let you know that the Retro Review SCW Rewind is coming back on Friday. That will also be live. We'll be doing Bad Blood. In Your House, Bad Blood. The first ever Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Shawn Michaels from 1997. And I've got guests joining for me as well. On all the live videos that we're going on this week, we'll have guests joining me. So looking forward to, talking wrestling with everyone and talking with you and getting you guys involved as well. But that's all for me. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good one. You've been watching SCW here on YouTube. Have yourselves a great day.